It's time to call them Hogs. John Calipari beats Rick Pitino, and Arkansas is headed to the Sweet 16.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making this your first listen or watch. And I want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us and our great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week coming up later in the episode. Going to be a fun show today. I'm joined by three different of our Locked On hosts, all whose teams are in the Sweet 16. We're going to start with John Nabors from Locked On Razorbacks, Arkansas. We're going to move then to Locked On Gators with our guy Brandon Olsen. We're going to finish up today's time with Jake Hatch, our great host of Locked On Cougars, the BYU version. If you're looking for previews ahead of the Sweet 16, we're going to do the Thursday previews on the Wednesday show and the Friday previews on the Thursday show, so stay tuned for that. The portal's open. We got coaching movement happening. Texas has hired Sean Miller and a whole host of others. We'll get to those things in due time. But for right now, let's head on into my conversation with John Nabors. Woo pig suey. It was just about this time last year that the March Madness got interrupted by the news of John Calipari coming to Fayetteville, Arkansas. What a whirlwind of a year it has been. John Nabors, the host of Locked On Razorbacks, joined me now to unpack it all. And Nabors, look, that's where we got to start. Cal had and Kentucky hadn't been to the Sweet 16 in forever, since pre-COVID, if we're being honest about it. And here we go, this wild coaching carousel that SMU kicked off, which you can kiss them, your lucky stars, as you drive to Dallas in the morning, my friend, has brought John Calipari to Fayetteville. And wouldn't you know it, back to the Sweet 16. John, how great is this for the Hogs?
I mean, it's everything. Never a doubt. I mean, we just thought 2 months ago when this team was 0-5 in SEC play, I was just like, no, it's okay. They're gonna at least make the Sweet 16. It is great. It is great because of many reasons. I mean, anytime you can go to the Sweet 16, it's a good thing. And when you make it to that second weekend, I mean, going to the tournament's great, but the second weekend is really where it starts to be a special year, no matter who you are. It's always something that you can kind of point to. But to have it to happen the way it did, and for it to be with Cal in his first season, considering how much we had to hear about, he's over the hill, he's cooked, he's not a good coach, he sucks, this team sucks, everything. They're in the Sweet 16, and now none of those games during the regular season matter as far as their bad losses, their bad players, their injuries, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. They're in the Sweet 16, and that's really all that matters. And they have a chance to do something even more so this weekend.
That's right. And folks, let's just everybody thank John as you're listening or watching this. We're recording actually on Monday night. Literally, he's getting up and driving to Dallas to fly out to San Francisco for the West region, literally early in the morning. And so he's a good dude. I want to go back to whenever it was in January. The Hogs are sitting at 0-5, and here comes the Boogie Flan news. Dude, I was like, this is cooked. It's done. It's over. And then 1-1 in the next two games, and the Hogs are heading to Rupp Arena sitting at 1-6. They go win that basketball game. They're starting to find themselves, like almost seemingly because Boogie is now out. How important was just that stretch of like, Boogie's gone, we got to figure out who we are, and now we go win in Lexington to set up where we are today?
I mean, it was huge. I think that was kind of the turning point of the season that everyone points to, and I think a lot of it had to do with the coming together that the team had. It's like, it's one thing to say, oh, well, you just beat a team because they played badly and you played great. Kentucky actually played pretty good in that game.
They did.
Offensively, they did score a ton of points, but Arkansas was just the better team. And I think that into that team came together and rallied around Cal, knowing, how he was treated by a lot of the fans there in Kentucky and how a lot of them were dancing on his grave because they were struggling. And they were all like, man, this is our coach. We're not going to allow him to go into that place that everyone's going to boo him and hate him and throw things at him and all that. So we're going to do what we can to help him out. And I think that was the turning point. And so, not to say that Arkansas won every game after that. They had some bad losses, but
Sure.
as far as the play that they had and the camaraderie and the getting to the point to where they needed to be, it was that moment. I mean, even in the teams that they faced, like Bama, for instance, Bama, they only lost to Bama by 3. They went on the road to Auburn and really should have won that game.
I should have.
They went on the road to A&M and should have won that game. I mean, it just none of these games, even in the games they lost, it wasn't, other than South Carolina. We don't talk about that, but other than that, like it was
Get under the rug there, John.
Yeah, everybody else was just incredible play and incredible games, and that was the point. That was the turning point to where they just got it going and got it together.
What's funny is heading into that game, Rick Pitino sat in his office in St. John's, recorded a video encouraging Kentucky fans to like welcome back Coach Cal and that whole thing. And then we turn to this weekend where those two men now have to face each other. An iconic matchup between two of the great coaches of our game, John Nabors. And man, if it didn't happen that Coach Cal gets that win against the Big East regular season and tournament champions, the biggest upset of the second round there, how gratifying was that moment?
I mean, it really was. Like it was one of the things that kind of reminded me of Kentucky in the game that they had, because going into it, of course, it's the Razorbacks, but that game wasn't about Arkansas versus Kentucky. It was about Cal versus Kentucky. And I felt it was the same way in this game. This game wasn't about Arkansas versus St. John's. This is about Calipari between Rick Pitino. I don't know if I said that the first time, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's Cal versus Pitino. And that's what it felt like. And so going into that game, it's like, that they don't like each other. It's the weirdest thing where they just won't flat out admit that they don't like each other, but everyone knows that they don't. And to considering their paths and everything, and to considering that Cal was the one that got the win in that, it's incredible. And, to beat Bill Self in round 1 and to beat Rick Pitino in game 2, it just shows you that, hey, Cal goes up against really good coaches and can still coach. I mean, he's still a Hall of Fame coach for a reason. And so it felt good for that one, especially the way that St. John's played. They're very physical, which Arkansas has struggled with physicality at times. But Arkansas is a more physical team out there, and they took care of business. And that's, I think, what really gives Razorback fans a lot of confidence. Is not saying that St. John's was the best team in the country, but just, hey, you're going up against a team that tried to hit you in the mouth and you hit them back. So the fight in this team is very strong. And even if they get down in one of these games, even if they're down to Texas Tech, whatever it is, I will always believe that they're going to come out, and they're going to come out swinging and fighting back and clawing back, trying to win.
Yeah, that was very evident, that punching in the mouth on Saturday during the game. Really crazy that 3 of the coaches involved in that same coaching carousel are all now in the Sweet 16 with not only Arkansas, but also BYU and Kentucky. That's one of my favorite Sweet 16 storylines. Speaking of which, John, quick look ahead to the game here this weekend against Texas Tech. I need an update if you've got anything recent on Tiro's status. I felt like maybe he was going to play this weekend. He doesn't. And then now going ahead and looking ahead to the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Thero situation, I don't have any evidence of anything, but just going off a gut feeling, I think he plays. Okay. I really do. I just going off of a gut instinct, and that's all it is. I think he plays. It seemed like he was flirting with it a little bit there in the game, in the post-game locker room when I was in there after the win against St. John's. You could tell that he's itching to get back out there. So, and they could use him. I mean, he was arguably their best player last season. Led him in scoring, and is a big, able-bodied guy, 6'7", 225, and they're going to be going up against a good Texas Tech team. Of course, I mean that's obvious. They went 27-8 and everything, but you're talking about a team that has a few players topping. Of course, I think Cal has more familiar probably with his, I don't know if it's his brother or whatever it is, but the top in there. But Darian Williams is the guy I'm going to be watching, because he's kind of built like Adu Thero, where he's just a big body, and that's almost why they need him back in this game. But I mean, Texas Tech can shoot, man. They can shoot from 3. They're shooting 38% from the 3-point line. They're 77% from the free throw line. I mean, they can shoot, which has been a problem for Arkansas at times. But will Arkansas's defense be able to hold them and get after them? That's going to be the key. But I still like the matchup. I like the fact that Arkansas can go up against a team like Texas Tech, and it's a lot of respect to them. But I think Arkansas, just talent-wise, physicality, the defensive side of things, I think Arkansas is going to definitely give them something that they haven't faced before.
Man, should be a fun game out in the Golden Gate City. Fun fact, John, Obi Toppin and JT Toppin are actually not related, but Obi Toppin and Jacob Toppin that played for Kentucky are brothers.
That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's one of, I always get in my head about it, and I always got to remind myself. Great stuff from John Nabors. All right, folks, we've got 7 SEC teams in the Sweet 16. It's absurd. And we got to talk to another one of our great Locked On local hosts coming up in just a second. That's Brandon Olsen, the host of Locked On Gators. We'll get to that in just a second. Safe travels, John. Good luck in San Francisco.
Appreciate you so much, man.
Right after I tell you about Nissan, the Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts, are picking one of the teams that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is the Arkansas Razorbacks that we just talked about. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way through the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off back-to-back national champion and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They accomplished all of this without their second leading scorer, Boogie Fland, for most of SEC play, and without leading scorer and rebounder Adu Thero so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Razorbacks have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. So take the Armada, the Rogue, or the Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Chomp, chomp, baby. It's great to be joined by the host of Locked On Gators, Mr. Brandon Olsen. B, I think I am still sweating after the first game of Sunday morning. I was watching it from a hotel room, and thankfully I had not showered yet, because with the amount of body sweat I lost after that. No, I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I legit thought Florida was cooked. I thought this game was over. I thought that was our first 1 seed going down, and somehow they pulled this thing out, knocking off the back-to-back national champions, ending their 13-game NCAA tournament winning streak, which was tied for the second longest ever. Brandon Olsen, how did Florida pull off this comeback?
They have absolute ice in their veins. That's the best way I can say. You know, like the video of Ashton Hall, the guy that's been going viral for sticking his face in the ice water. That's Walter Clayton Jr. It's blood. That's it. That's all it is. Just ice water in the veins there. He's a monster there. This is a team that so many times this year they've faced adversity, whether it was brought upon by themselves or just running into a buzzsaw at the wrong time. And so often they've bounced back. I know that they lost the Georgia game basically a month ago today at this point.
Yeah.
They lost the Georgia game then, but they were down 26 at one point, took the lead with under a minute left, and they got ultimately lost. But to be at your rival's home court, down 26 points, and to be able to fight and claw back, like, to me, that was a game where you kind of go, okay, like they've got the guts to go through anything they need at this point.
Yeah, and you look at it, and heading into the tournament, Brandon, I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, Florida's the hottest thing since sliced bread right now." They were rolling, but we've got to remember that in the NCAA tournament, that momentum can change at any point in time. One of the things we often look at in the NCAA tournament is it feels like teams that make a Final Four run or a national championship run often kind of have to go through a game like this and either get lucky or just pull it out by the skin of their teeth. How important do you think this win was to set up hopefully 4 more wins for the Gators?
I think it was huge just for their mental, and it did feel like a game where not everybody was giving 100% all the time, but there were moments there where you can tell, hey, Florida's just so close to making a run. They're so close to getting hot. Whether it was the Elijah Martin steal there, where he then clanked the dunk because he tried throwing down there. But it's like, as he was going up at that, it felt like it was changing the game, and it felt like it was changing things. And this is a team that, as often as they've had their backs up against the wall, whenever they have that, they usually rebound in an awesome way. I mean, you look at, they lost the Kentucky game to open SEC play, and their very next game, they beat, at the time, number 1 Tennessee by 30 points. Every time they've lost, they've answered with a strong game, or anytime they've had a game where they should have lost, but they came out and won. They answered with a dominant performance, and I'm hoping that they'll continue that trend of theirs.
It's hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that this is the first Sweet 16 for Florida since 2017. It does not feel to me like it's been that long. This happens in year 3 of Todd Golden, Brandon. And I remember in Todd Golden's first year after he came over from San Francisco, you texted me a couple times and been like, is this it? Is this the right thing? Right? Remember some of those text conversations we had? And now as we sit here 2 years later, Florida's in the Sweet 16. How are you feeling about Todd Golden as the Gators coach?
I absolutely love the performance they've had. I love the program that he's built there. I love it, the way that he's built the program. I know that he has his analytics-oriented style, and as nerdy as I am, wasn't aware of it too much when he first got here, and so started studying up, which you helped me with that. And it's like, it's incredible to know, hey, this is what this coach wants to do. Yeah. This is how he wants to build his team. And then to watch him go through it, watch him build, watch him adjust every time he actually can and grow there. And it's been awesome to see. I know that when people talk about Florida, oftentimes the first thing that they talk about is the Tim Tebow years of winning football championships. But for much of my life, Florida's been a better basketball school than football school. So it's amazing that it's been so long since they last made it. But it's good to be back, and it feels like something that's actually sustainable here.
There was another team in the state of Florida that made a Final Four run a couple of years ago, Brandon. Crazy enough, that FAU team spread all out this year. Dusty May goes to Michigan, the head coach. Vlad Golden goes to Michigan with him. John L. Davis goes to Arkansas, but Elijah Martin heads to Gainesville. How important, as Florida moves forward into this weekend against Maryland and maybe beyond, how important do you think Elijah Martin's previous postseason experience will be?
I think it's huge because this is a team that's had their letdowns, and he's the one where he seems very constant of like, I don't know why we're all so happy. Like, we're like, job's not done. We still got to keep going. It's great to do. And like, he participates in the TikTok dances in the locker room after wins and all that, but he's still the guy where he's like, hey, job's not done. We got to get this. He's always the one that's like stoic, and he's always the one that's going through this. And without him, he was the guy where after Selection Sunday, I said he was my X factor for the whole tournament for Florida. And you lose that game against UConn bad if it's not for Elijah Martin, because through the first half, he was the guy that was actually producing and showing up. So I think that his ability to stay perfectly level-headed and his toughness and his tenacity, he's a hell of a basketball player, but he also just brings the intangibles that a championship team needs around them. And I think that his presence really helps me feel confident in this team.
Now the setting changes from the East Coast to the West Coast. We move from Raleigh, North Carolina out to San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge, as Florida's going to take on Maryland, who had the lone buzzer beater of the first round, maybe a travel from Derek Queen. I don't know. What we learn about Maryland, though, is that this is a team that relies very heavily on their starting lineup that we affectionately call the Crab Five. What I'm curious about is, it feels to me, Brandon, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong, that the depth Florida has both in the backcourt and now in the front court, with Alex Condon getting back healthy, with Micah Hanlogton pulling his red shirt and coming in, that Florida might be able to take advantage of that lack of depth that Maryland has. Do you see that as a storyline for this game?
I see it as something that a lot of people talk about as a storyline, but it's just, for me, I look at this Crab Five, as we've called them, and yeah, they don't use their bench much, but they also don't foul. So I just bring that up because I keep getting the comments of, oh, just get them in foul trouble, as if that's a thing that you get to dictate. They don't foul a lot. They're a very disciplined team, very defense oriented. I think that where the depth comes in for Florida is, I think Florida should just kick the pace up to 11, go as fast as you can, and then rotate. And even if they want to keep their starting five in, let them keep their starting five in, but you're going to have fresh legs on that court constantly. And I think that that's where you can try to either force Maryland to play tired players or force them to go deeper into their bench than they usually do.
Well, we saw Derek Queen, which, by the way, how does he not have a Dairy Queen NIL deal? It just makes sense to me, Brandon. Give me all the blizzards, right? Even if you're not paying me, just give me my weight in ice cream. He makes that game-winning shot, post-game interview with braces all over his face. How on earth can this front court of Alex Condon and Chinyelu and Handlockton slow him down?
I don't know how much he can slow him down, really. Honestly, like, I think about it, and when I think of strength-wise, because he's a tank, when I think of strength-wise, I think Ruben Chinyelu should be the guy, but length-wise, Alex Condon has that answer for you. I do think that Micah Handlockton can be very helpful here. He's put on a lot of weight since last season. Good weight, not bad weight. So he's put on a lot of good weight since last season. He's got the size, the length to challenge. I worry about the quickness there, but I do think that your answer should be Alex Condon primarily, and try to just get some shot contests, force him to take some more unnatural shots, and then have Micah Handlockton rotating in and hopefully handling that. But it ain't going to be easy, I'll tell you that.
It's going to be a fun matchup between these two teams on Thursday out in San Francisco. Andy Patton's going to have the preview for this game on tomorrow's show. Make sure you tune in. Now, we got to look ahead to the East region where things are going to be offense first, second, and always. We're going to talk to our great host of Locked On Cougars from the BYU version, that is, Mr. Jake Hatch. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Right after I tell you about SupplyHouse, get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse. So whether you're into plumbing or HVAC or electrical work, SupplyHouse is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. You need help with an order? SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always get to talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Check it all out at supplyhouse.com. It's great to be joined now on Locked On College Basketball by the great host of Locked On Cougars, Mr. Jake Hatch, who is very graciously joining me here on a Monday evening from his 10-year anniversary trip, by the way, with the permission of his sweet wife. Thank you, Mrs. Hatch. We appreciate you. Jake Hatch, I'm thinking back to last summer. We're at the end of a coaching carousel set off by SMU, and everyone's stealing everyone's coach. And here we sit now on Monday, March 24th, where three of those teams on the back end of this coaching carousel are all in the Sweet 16 together. We've got John Calipari at Arkansas. We've got Mark Pope at Kentucky and Kevin Young at BYU. We probably never could have dreamed in that moment that we'd be sitting here having this conversation today. Jake Hatch, how special is this run that BYU is on?
It's pretty special. There's no doubt about it. Here's the thing, Isaac, is had you told me that BYU would make it to the Sweet 16 year one with Kevin Young, I would have traded almost everything to take that. You said last April when he got hired. It was just absolutely remarkable to consider where he was, the roster that he inherited, what he had to do to get that roster rebuilt, and then the run they've been on essentially the last month and a half, now won 11 of 12 games. Absolutely insane what they have accomplished, and there's still more to go, hopefully, as they face off against Alabama.
Yes, the lone loss in the stretch being that loss to Houston in the Big 12 tournament. We can live with that because good grief. Those other Cougars are having a good season as well, Jake. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. It's like, I think everyone's looking ahead to AJ DeBancer or looking back like, man, all those guys went with Coach Pope or, you know, all the Khalifa going to Louisville. And it's like, what are we going to do in between? Well, seems like things have gone pretty well in between, thanks to people like Richie Saunders and Yegor Demon, man. Just talk about some of the personnel that have made this thing go.
Well, you talk about guys who left with Mark Pope. Here's the thing. He tried to get Richie Saunders. He tried to get Dallin Hall to leave for Kentucky, and they were guys who were loyal to BYU and stuck around. They believed in what Kevin Young pitched to them as their head coach, and Richie Saunders most improved player in the Big 12 this season, a first-team all-conference player. 2 years ago, I would have never guessed that. He was the ultimate glue guy, a true sixth man, and John Rothstein talked about it all the time. He's the ultimate sixth man in college basketball. His emergence this year has been absolutely remarkable. We also mentioned Jaeger Demon. Him and Cannon Catchings came in as these highly touted freshmen that were expected to be one-and-doneers. Now, Cannon, I don't think it's worked out as well as it has with Jaeger, but Jaeger on the biggest stage here in the NCAA tournament, he almost had a triple-double the other night, 11, 8, and 8 against Wisconsin. You don't get that from 18-year-old freshmen very often. So you're right. The contributions from across this roster, Kebeketa coming in from Utah as that rim protector for BYU and a vertical lob threat. They have gotten contributions from across this roster, and it truthfully goes 11 men deep.
Well, I can tell you this. I was riding in a van to the airport today with Mr. Gordon Hayward, and he is enamored with Jaeger Demon and think he's going to be phenomenal at the next level. So from an NBA All-Star to your ears, there's where we're at. Now, Jake, I struggled in this Wisconsin game as Wisconsin made that furious comeback, and we get that John Tonje shot to really try to mess things up there toward the end for BYU. I just need to know, at what part of your body was your heart in as that final Wisconsin possession was happening?
Well, it was in my throat. That's as high as it possibly could get without actually going into my brain, it felt like, because you watch that play unfold, and John Tonje had 37 points. You're like, all right, he's getting the ball. Can you stop him? And I talk about guys who have made major contributions. Mawit Mag, I forgot to mention him. He has been the defensive eraser for BYU on the perimeter. He's been absolutely phenomenal since kind of a stepping in that role at midseason. And without him, they don't stop a guy like John Tonje on that play. He played picture-perfect defense. I know that Wisconsin fans will argue that he got a little over his skis. So be it. Well, it's a hard call to call in that circumstance. And BYU is the beneficiary of it. Obviously, Ryan Herrings and I had a great conversation before the game and afterwards, and it was a phenomenal basketball game. And the fun part is the style that BYU played in that game against Wisconsin, it could be upped to another level against Alabama this week.
And that's what we're going to have to talk about. Ryan Herrings, by the way, folks, our great host of Locked On. Bucky, Wisconsin there. Tough loss after a great season for Greg Gard's Badgers. You said it, Jake. Let's look ahead to this game that's going to happen with Alabama there in the Prudential Center in Newark this weekend. I mean, this is a loaded offensive East region. We've got Duke, we've got Arizona, we've got BYU and Alabama. I mean, defense optional. These games might all be first team the 90. How do you see things playing out between BYU and Alabama this weekend?
The biggest thing is I'm looking at these two teams. You talk about an offensive just juggernaut of a region. You're talking about all four of these teams. You mentioned Duke and Arizona on the other side, BYU and Alabama. Any one of them are capable of going for 100 points. So here's the thing. You mentioned maybe first to 90. I'm saying the first to 100 in Alabama and BYU may win this game. Yeah, you did. How about defense being optional? Any stop, it feels like, in this game could be pivotal to helping one of these teams win. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, is just two high-flying offenses trading haymakers back and forth, hitting threes, go into the room with impunity. It should be a really, really fun game.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, honestly, you can very well be right with both of these teams hitting the century mark in regulation. Jake, over under 81.5 combined 3-point attempts in this basketball game.
81.5 is just a tad bit too high. I was thinking like somewhere like 71 probably would be. So I'll take the under, but you're right. There's going to be a lot of 3-pointers hoisted up. These teams, much like BYU and Wisconsin, they shoot it with reckless abandon. I know that sounds bad, but they know what they're doing. They take good shots, and they will take them early in the clock. They'll take them late in the clock. If they find a good shot, they will take it.
Yeah, and what's funny is I was trying to be hyperbolic about how many that over under, but the fact that you even considered it as a reality is part of what's hilarious about this. With BYU being 24th nationally in 3-point attempts per game and Alabama being 14th. It's crazy, crazy stuff. Jake Hatch, good luck to you this weekend, man. I hope the Cougs can keep on rolling with I guess I probably shouldn't play favorites here, but look. We're not talking Alabama. We're talking BYU here. Go get them, my man. Good luck. Big thanks to John and to Brandon and to Jake for joining me on today's show to talk about their teams. And we know we got all these other great 13 other teams in the Sweet 16 as well. Cannot wait for all the great action coming up. As a reminder, on tomorrow's show, Andy will get you ready for the Thursday games. And then on Thursday's show, Andy and I together will get you ready for Friday's games. Make sure to tune in for those. If you've not subscribed to the show on YouTube, make sure you do that. If you've not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, the link for that is in the show notes. Free to join. We'd love to have you. As always, I want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Wild Popes. Shouts to McBruins. And until tomorrow, peace.